All right, we're back in session.
Okay, we'll get ready to go again. At this time, I was going to ask Mr. Jim Perry if he would have something that he'd like to address the commission concerning.
Thank you. Well, it's positive, it's not negative. So, but anyway, I just want to thank Bobby and Tim Broadbrand and some of the other entourage agency people that came down to Paris yesterday. I'm from Paris, live in Buchanan, down in Paris State Park area. Real concerned about the Asian carp. Been working for the last 2 or 3 years with them, with Kentucky, and going to meetings, bouncing a lot of stuff back and forth to Bobby. And I told him in one of the meals, I said, I know you get tired of me sending you all this stuff. And he said, no, just send everything. But Bobby came down and met with the county executive, county mayor, some of our finance people, outdoor writers, and some other interested people. Even the sheriff was there. And I wondered what part of the role the sheriff's going to play at an Asian carp meeting. But as it turned out, he's interested in maybe trying to pursue some Asian carp to feed the inmates at the jail. They're already, he has an idea of commercial fishing to catch catfish to feed some of the prisoners, or inmates, maybe I shouldn't call them prisoners, inmates, but detained, I guess. But anyhow, and then he heard about the carp and he got real interested. But anyway, Bobby came down and we had some good ideas thrown out. The county executive is very positive about trying to possibly duplicate next year a commercial fishing Asian carp tournament that Kentucky is going to have March 12th and 13th of this year. And we're going to go up and observe that and see how successful that is. And then if that all goes well, he's already privately, I guess, at that meeting has allocated a certain amount of money to put up for prize money to have them come down and do the same thing in conjunction with maybe the world's biggest fish fry, and also serve some carp meat like we did out there to the public, just to try to introduce them, to this particular carp meat and food, in which I really dearly loved it and enjoyed it. And the purpose that I came really was to listen to Kevin. Don't know him personally, but a friend of mine had heard him before, and he said he was very, very intelligent as far as the Asian carp, and he is. But anyway, that's why I'm here, and I do want to thank the agency and Bobby and them for coming down, and appreciate it. We'll continue to work and do whatever we can to help solve the problem with the Asian carp thing.
Thank you for your information. And I think we'll probably start calling them Kentucky salmon, though, right?
At the the last commission meeting, the Commercial Fishing Advisory Committee had brought forth a couple of recommendations that they'd like for the commission to consider. And most of those we're going to consider at our biologist meeting, but we were asked to consider those regarding Asian carp. And there were three requests or three recommendations, and one of them was to, they wanted to change in the mesh size of gill nets. They requested to increase the mesh size from 4 inches to 4.5 inches. Right now, they can fish up to about 4 inches, and then they can fish from 6 inches and above on the mesh square size, but they can't fish between 4 inches and 6 inches. And they requested to go to 4.5. It gives them a better, more efficient net for catching Asian carp, and also catching the bigger Asian carp, and they won't tear up their nets as bad. They can get them out easier without tearing the net out if they catch one. And as well, Kentucky, state of Kentucky allows 4.5-inch mesh too. So we convened a meeting and a conference call meeting as well, and with our biologists across the state to discuss these recommendations, and they all agreed to go ahead and increase the mesh size to 4.5 inches. They also requested a time change on creeks and bays. And currently, only on Kentucky Lake, there is a restriction in getting into the creeks and bays in April and May. They can be there from 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. I may have mentioned at the last commission meeting, but the reason for this is because in April and May, Kentucky Lake is one of the best crappie fisheries in Tennessee for sure. former Commissioner Mike Hayes was here, he reminded me that Reelfoot Lake is also a very good crappie fishery. So, but Kentucky Lake is well known, as you know, for crappie fishing. And in April and May, particularly April, the crappie fishermen get up in these creeks and bays to fish for crappie. To try to reduce the encounter between commercial fishermen and sport fishermen. That's why we have this regulation in place at this time, and only on Kentucky Lake. There's no other lake, not Barkley or any other lake. And so they asked if we would change the time to allow them a little more time to get in there, set their nets, and to run their nets. Sometimes that's just not enough time. So after a lot of discussion, here's a picture of a guy catching crappie, and we recommended 1 hour after sunset to 5 o'clock in the morning. Early April, that'll give him about additional 3 hours total. Late May, it only gives him about 2 hours, but I think the bulk of the fishery, and really the bulk of the crappie fishery takes place in April, so there won't be as many people in there anyway to be a problem of encounter. So that was our second recommendation based on their request. And then the other one was to extend the open section of the Duck River. I might want to turn that light off. You might see it a little better. I don't know if you can see it over there, but currently this longer line here is the boundary where they can't go set their nets beyond that. They can go in there from, I think, December 1st to January 15th in this whole embayment area. They requested to open up the whole thing to about this marker right here, and this is where it necks down to the actual Duck River almost. And we discussed this a lot with our biologists, and the Duck River may contribute to paddlefish reproduction. And we don't know how significant it is. We've never done any much sampling to determine that, but there is a real good chance that there is some reproduction going on, and so we felt like that anything we can do to protect the paddlefish, excuse me, I'm talking about paddlefish now, I probably skipped over that part, but this is an important paddlefish reproduction place, and anything we can do to protect the paddlefish in that area, we felt like we should do that. If they're able to go up in this area, especially during the spawning time, there's a good chance that they could probably effectively block migration of most of the paddlefish up there. So this is we don't think it's a very special area just for Asian carp. It's probably more important for paddlefish, and for this reason, the Region 1 folks and the enforcement folks also recommend no change in the regulation on the Duck River embayment.
I want to ask if there's any questions, but I want to say personally that I'm glad that we were able to help the commercial fishermen, especially in light of the fact that we're going to be needing them to help us with these Asian carp. So I appreciate y'all passing 2 of the 3 of the requests. Are there any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't really have a question. I just wanted to thank the folks who just cooked for us a little bit ago. It was delicious. And I'm sorry I was as surprised as I am. It was delicious, and I really appreciate the hard work and effort that it took to catch those fish and cook them, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. I should have recognized them too. They're still out there now cleaning up. There's Michael Clark and Casey Parker from Region 1, the Streams and Rivers crew. I spent the last about 3 or 4 weeks getting this stuff together, and they did a great job. Thanks to Region 1, Tim Broadbent. Would you pass that on here, their supervisor? We appreciate that, and I agree with you. Thank you.
Is there any other questions from the commission? Any from the audience?
Yeah, I got one.
Can you please state your name, please?
I'm Billy Robertson. I commercial fish, and about 16, 17 years ago, when y'all closed Duck River, we were supposed to got to the log jam on that 45 days that it opened up, but we never got. All we got is about up there where the end of the island start. We never even got where we're supposed to. If you'd had your map down a little bit longer, see them bays that runs off to the side? Well, that's where your silver carp's gonna be in that shallow water. All that is a hatchery up there. And we can't get to them to even try to catch them. You know, I feel like we ought to at least get that on up. If you're worried about the paddlefish, just leave the 6-inch nets out. You know, go with just a 4.5, nothing no bigger. Or no paddlefish. You know, don't just cut us off, 'cause like I said, y'all just got a hatchery up there on the upper end that, we can't even get to them if we had to, you know, could get to them.
Obviously, I'm not able to answer your question because I'm not familiar with the Duck River Basin there, but we'll have to address that to the agency and.
See, it's been closed either 16 or 17 years. I was at the meeting. Well, me and two other boys came up here, and we were supposed to got what they call the log jam, which all it is a shallow bar up there, all the logs and trees, you know, they congregate on it. But we were supposed to got that from December the 1st till January the 15th, 45 days. Well, usually our luck is like right now. It's either a mud flat up there, we can't even get to it, or it's rolling like the Tennessee out there right now.
Do you have a comment, Bobby?
I can only comment that the folks in Region 1, the biologists and enforcement people both, just felt like this was an area that the regulation is a good regulation the way it is now. And for the time being, not saying we can't come back and address it later if the Asian carp markets develop and we find out that's where they could have a big impact on collecting them in that area. But for right now, we will recommend to leave it the way it is, recommendation.
Jeff?
I've got a question. If we, where's Alan Peterson? Alan, if it's a concern about paddlefish, if they are not allowed to catch and keep paddlefish, then what's the problem? The paddlefish are the concern, and if that's an area that the Asian carp are reproducing and they can't catch paddlefish, then why can't they fish those waters?
I'm probably going to ask Tim or Reggie to express more of their concerns, but they don't feel that area, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, that area is particularly important for Asian carp, that if we could put some people in there with a bunch of nets, we could wipe out the Asian carp population on Kentucky Lake. That it's more important to protect the paddlefish there than to think that any netting to take Asian carp out of that part of Kentucky Lake is going to have any impact on the Asian carp. Does that make sense?
Then what stress are you putting on the paddlefish? What's the endangerment of the paddlefish?
Can I comment on that? Right now, they're protected from commercial harvest from going up in there. And even though we don't know what impact it might have, we do know that right now they are protected. And if it's opened up to paddlefish fishing, it could impact the spawning ability of what paddlefish may be going up in there.
That makes sense.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about paddlefish, I'm talking about Asian carp. And I'm not trying to put you on the spot, I understand what you're trying to do, but if they are not allowed to catch paddlefish, only the Asian carp, and that's the concern, then I'm sorry, but I don't understand why they can't fish for the Asian carp in there, unless the bycatch is paddlefish, and they're gonna harm the paddlefish or whatever, but I think they, I'd like to hear what.
Okay, Tim Broadbent's the fisheries biologist on Kentucky Lake. He can probably answer it better than I can.
Maybe. The concern is bycatch. I mean, just because you're not fishing for paddlefish don't mean you're not going to catch them. Paddlefish is one of a good resource on the reservoir. We're trying to build the population, maintain a commercial harvest for it. And it's just not paddlefish. We have a striped bass holding area above that bend where striped bass will hold in the summertime. Now, we don't stock striped bass, but sometimes we have natural spawns. We have migration from the Ohio River or from Kentucky where they'll hold up in there. If you're allowed to set nets up through there, you're going to have an impact on those too. Duck River has been recognized as one of the most fish-rich rivers by National Geographic in the whole United States. So what we're trying to do, we're trying to protect, just because they get in that one area doesn't mean they're going to control the Asian carp population in Kentucky Reservoir. They've got 160,000 more acres to fish. So we see at this point that instead of just saying, all right, you can fish up to the neck and you can cut off all migration of fish at that neck by setting nets across there, that we feel like that we're going to leave it where it's at for now, and if it becomes a problem, we'll readdress it at a later date.
But it's the bycatches.
Bycatch is always a concern for
Just because
paddlefish.
they don't.
Yeah, you can.
Is there mortality
associated with the bycatch, is that what you're saying?
You could have a significant mortality associated with bycatch.
Maybe it just being green, I guess I envision them bringing it up to the boat, and if it's a paddlefish, they just throw it back over, if it's a striped bass, they just throw it back in the water. Is that not the case with the procedure here?
So you can, if you net or gill a fish, you impact its gills with your netting, and you have significant mortality possible with that fish. I mean, you're not going to always kill it. There's going to be some mortality associated there.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Bobby, does that conclude your,
That concludes
Presentation.
this part of it.
do we need a motion to approve the changes that we?
Well, we're gonna, no,
presented?
no, as long as nobody objects to it, I don't think we need to vote on it, because it's not gonna, what we would like to do is send out these recommendations by way of news release and put them on our website, and then have, set for public comment.
So when will they be effective?
Well, if we, depends on how long we do it for public comment.
Well, let's-
is
I mean, I would suggest.
It would have to be the
try
next
to do it pretty
commission.
quick.
It'd have to
for
be
that.
whenever the next commission meeting
Okay.
is, so.
When does the season start? Is it effective now, the commercial fishing for Asian carp?
Oh, it goes year-round, there's
You're
no
right,
season,
okay,
yeah.
all right. Well, let's try to get it done as quick as we can, so we'll try to do it for the next.
We'll bring it
commission.
back as a official proposal to be voted on at the next meeting.
All right, thank you very much. You have one more thing?
Well, at the last commission meeting, I think you asked to give an update on the guide license and the outfitter's license and surveys and that kind of thing. So I didn't want to list a whole bunch of questions, but I kind of want to go over the guts of some of the questions that we came up with that would be good if we had answers to going forth to help us determine if or what kind of license or what kind of restriction or permit we would need. And so we just, it would need to be an acceptance of a fishing and hunting guide license and possible pricing. Those are some of the questions that we would survey out there. What kind of economic impacts from guides in Tennessee are there? What are the conflicts, particularly with guiding operations, crowding at boat ramps, et cetera? And one thing we got to be careful of is there could be polarization, because some people are going to be very passionate on one way or the other. A lot of the guides we already know, very passionate, wanting a guide license, and there are other people who guide who don't want it, and there's fishermen as well and outfitters as well. So these kind of things need to be blended in with any kind of survey that we do. We contacted a company or an organization that does this kind of thing. It's called Southwick and Associates, and they have actually never done one like this, but they typically, sometimes they'll survey a state to see about maybe a price of a license increase or something like that. And so they could probably do it, but the cost of it, they said, would be anywhere from $28,000 to $40,000. We are also, with Commissioner Woodson's suggestion, are going to try to meet with CBER, or CBER, I think is what they refer to it, within the next couple of weeks with the same list of questions, and see if they can handle something like that. They might not be able to, but we're going to have some dialogue and some discussion with them too. That's all I got.
That's all you got?
That's all I got. I'm done.
Well, I appreciate what you got. But we'll then hopefully hear what the company in Knoxville can do, and maybe we'll know something by the next meeting. They're gonna take. Yes, sir. Would you come to the microphone, please? State your name, please.
Travis Tarver.
Carver?
Tarver, T as a Tom.
Okay.
Travis Tarver.
I hear better.
Just a couple of issues about the Asian carp, but I'd like to address it. The film that we saw with Bill Dance, and they were all jumping in McKellar Lake. The section of water between Meeman State Park at Shelby Forest, which extends 31 miles south to the Mississippi state line, is completely closed for commercial fishing of any type. It's just like a no-fly zone, can't go there. That also encompasses the Arkansas side of the water, which is landlocked because the state lines significantly snake back and forth from one bank to the other. And that whole area is just a breeding hot zone for these Asian carp. That's 31 miles south of Shelby Farms boat ramp. It's about a mile south of Shelby Forest, all the way to the Mississippi state line. I believe the water quality was maybe the Ray part of the issue, but according to Mississippi, their water quality at the state line is well within the limits. The EPA has tested it. They say it's well within the limits. Arkansas has tested it. So that section of river being closed to access not only just the water, but the boat ramps as well. Commercial fishermen can't even use them to gain access to water because the water's closed. I didn't know if there might be some type of future consideration to open 31 miles of breeding area. That's about all I got.
I don't think I can comment on that.
Do you know why it's closed?
We do, but it's,
There are different sections of waters of the state that have fish advisory warnings, either no commercial take or pregnant women shouldn't eat the fish because of mercury or PCBs or whatever. TWA doesn't create those advisories. It's handled through, is it TDEX,
TDEC.
Water Pollution Control people, and whatever recommendations they make, TWA publishes them in the fishing guides, and we accept whatever their advisories are. Virtually all the waters in Shelby County have advisories on them, and it's not our call. We just accept whatever they advise. If, if they go back and look at it and the water has improved, then it's up to them to change the advisory.
So it's really a TDEC issue. Right.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to address both of those issues that we just brought up.
State your name, please.
Dale Robertson, I'm a commercial fisherman. I was told by a commissioner at the time and a member of the agency that I would not get into Bill Dance's private catfishing hole, talking about that 31 miles of water. Pollution had nothing to do with it. I'll give names if you want names. But that I was told in negotiating meetings that would never be open because it was Bill Dance's private catfishing hole, by a commissioner, a sitting commissioner at the time, and a member of the agency. And as far as the spending all this money on the guide license, there's a Tennessee state law right now. We have a guide license. It's called a commercial fishing license. They choose not to interpret it that way because we got to be gone. We're at the state and federal level. Federal guys told me they were gravitating to doing away with all wild caught fish. You just seen you wanted us to help, but you seen what we got when we asked for something from the agency. They want us gone. They don't want no help from us. They don't want us here, period.
I got a question and a comment. You guys want to catch Asian carp, and what are you gonna do with them?
We're hauling them to Paducah right now. Ledbetter, Schaefer's winding up with them. Ronnie Hopkins is buying for Mike Schaefer. He's buying buffalo and all that stuff. That's why that area there it's good for buffalo and the Asian carp both, and the yellow carp. That's why we agreed to give up the paddlefish in that area just to fish it.
But aren't there enough Asian carp everywhere else besides opening waters that are questionable?
That's what is it questionable for?
Well, you got, the TDEC closed it. I mean, I can
No,
assure
no,
you
no.
that they
Well,
didn't
you talking
close the
about- you talking
water
about Duck
because
River.
Bill Dance wants to fish it for catfish. That's
You were talking
ridiculous.
about Duck River.
Well, that and the Mississippi River too.
Yeah. Well, if you're ever going to get rid of them, how are you going to get rid of them if you leave a big section that you can't get in there too? Like a while back, they changed the law. You could commercial fish anywhere unless it was listed as closed. Now you can only fish if it's listed as open. We lost all the dewatering areas along all these places, another natural breeding ground. I mean, we have been.
But that's not TWR, that's TDEC. I just want to know what you did with the fish. If there's a sudden interest in it, if there was somebody that was taking them, what you were doing.
Yes, they are.
Okay.
My brother had pulled 1,200 yards about 2 weeks ago and had 3,500 pounds of the things. I mean, there was a tremendous amount. And like Bill Lance said, I'm not a big fan of Bill Lance, but he's correct about all he said about the silver carp. we don't have the bait fish in Kentucky Lake that we had. The fishermen are struggling to get bait to catch the catfish now, and it's gonna affect every last thing. You know, this bunch here is gonna have to change their notion of us, or they ain't gonna have nothing to manage. 'Cause it's gonna devastate everything in the lake.
Thank you, Mr. Robertson, but I do feel like we're taking measures to try to help you. We've made 2 to 3 requests you had, and we are agreeing to them. So we are trying to be responsive to you. But in defense of the agency, if there are other fish involved, if paddlefish are going to be affected by it, then if you're using a 4.5-inch net and there's byproduct catch, then that's what it's all about. So we'll take that in consideration, and I appreciate your efforts today. Thank you, Bobby. Mr. Perry, did you have something else?
But when you mentioned the guide license up there, just real briefly, I've had a discussion with Commissioner Griggs a few years ago, I think, when this guide license permit deal came up. And I guided on Kentucky Lake for 42 years and retired a couple years ago. But anyway, just be real sensitive or do your homework on the fishing guide license. I know the issue maybe that came up because of maybe up in East Tennessee and some trout waters and North Carolina guys coming in, they were wanting maybe some kind of a permit that would help curtail that particular situation in North Carolina. But I've got friends that live in Kentucky that guide on Kentucky Lake, and Kentucky didn't have a guide license, so they initiated a guide license. So my friend said, well, we'll spend whatever it is, $100 to $300, whatever guide license to help them out. Well, when they did that, the Coast Guard got involved. So the Coast Guard comes in, and now all those guides have to be certified and passed to be a charter captain, so to speak. And they have to sign up for the drug testing and on and on and on. And then Homeland Security got in. So they had to jump through a bunch of hoops with those. And the guides on Kentucky Lake, especially in my part of the world, there's not a lot of them. They don't make a lot of money. A lot of them do it part-time. But just be real sensitive. And when you get into the guide license, if the Coast Guard's going to get involved in it, because when you list these guides and give their personal information where the Coast Guard can look it up and find where they live and contact, they're going to contact everybody. They got into a controversy because Old Hickory, the guides on Old Hickory, because it's navigable waters, would fall under the jurisdiction of the Coast Guard. The people on Percy Priest, the guides, that's not a navigable water as far as a lock through. So the Coast Guard didn't have any jurisdiction. The Coast Guard won't have any jurisdiction at Reelfoot. But just be sensitive about that, you know, do your homework, and then whatever you do, you do. But there are a lot of, you know, there are a lot of gray areas in the guide license business.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Bobby.
We need to take another break, a technical break, so just sit tight while we set up. Michael, we're